Hi, I'm Taylor with Mom on the Spectrum, and this is my autism education series for friends and family. Today, I'm going to be sharing how to respond when a loved one shares an autism diagnosis with you. This is the second video in my series. The first one was over common autism misconceptions, many of which kept me from getting my autism diagnosis for 31 years. So I was officially diagnosed at age 31. I'm 36 now. This is my channel, and I'm so glad you're here. So, first of all, I want to make sure you understand that when someone shares an autism diagnosis with you, this means that you are an important person in their life. There's many people in my community. This is one of the questions that I receive most often is how do I share my autism diagnosis with my family, with my coworker, with my friend, with my spouse? Often autistic people spend a great deal of time and energy, sometimes money, with therapy or autism evaluations or support groups so that they can build up enough courage to share this information with people in their lives. For many of us, it makes a significant difference being able to share this information. I knew once I was diagnosed, it made such a difference in my life just having words to describe my experience. It felt like I was finally seen, and I wanted to be able to share that with people that I loved. So today I'm going to be sharing some really simple, practical ways that you can respond when someone shares an autism diagnosis with you. And I'm also going to be sharing some answers that were sent in from community members here at Mom on the Spectrum. So as we jump into the list here, I want to again reiterate, when someone does share an autism diagnosis with you, this is kind of like they're opening the door into an intimate area of their lives. And your job is not to go in and rearrange the furniture. It's to say, hey, thanks for letting me in. I'm glad to be here with you. So the way that you respond, there's a lot of power here in deepening the relationship and deepening the connection. And I truly believe that by following the things that I'm going to share with you, this not only enhances the life of the autistic person in your life, but it's also going to enhance your life as well because it's going to give you a deeper, stronger connection. So first things first, lead with gratitude. Someone shares an autism diagnosis with you. Hey, thanks for trusting me with this. That's one of the things that came through loud and clear when I asked for answers from our community. Thank them for sharing that with you and acknowledge the vulnerability that it took to share that. That must have taken some time to figure out how to share with me, or I'm sure you put a lot of thought into sharing that with me, and I really appreciate the vulnerability that it takes to share that. The second thing is to believe them immediately. Now, I know some of you might have pushback about that. Some of you might be thinking, this is overdiagnosed. TikTok made you do it, whatever. I'm not saying that you have to agree wholeheartedly. Okay, that there's time and space for questions and for more conversation around this later. But right when they share it with you, believe them, believe their experience, believe that what they're saying to you is deeply true and resonating with them in a very important way. No second guessing, no, but you don't seem autistic. That's not a helpful thing to say. And it actually can be very hurtful. So I know even some people in my life, when I first shared the diagnosis, that was kind of the response. Well, no one would ever know. No, don't worry. No one would ever know that you're autistic. There's nothing to be ashamed of in terms of being autistic. And that response to me comes from a place of almost shame or embarrassment that someone in your life is autistic. There's nothing to be ashamed about. So no, you don't seem autistic. That doesn't help anybody. The third thing is to step away from comparisons. So don't bring up stereotypes. Don't bring up your, strange neighbor that never talks. Don't start comparing them to other people or other autistic people that you've known in the past. That seems to come up a lot. Well, oh, my cousin was autistic and you're nothing like them. That is not helpful. You've heard me, if you've been on the channel for a while, you've heard me say, if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. So believe them, believe their story, and don't compare them to other people. Each autistic person's experience is very unique. The fourth thing is to avoid dismissive responses. Phrases like everyone's a little bit autistic or you're so high functioning, that minimizes the person's reality. So I think I talked about this a little bit in part 1 with misconceptions, but that term high functioning, again, the same concept of like, well, no one would ever know. A lot of times high functioning or lower support needs people, they're actually working overtime so that it doesn't appear that they're struggling. And I was one of those people who really wish that other people could see how hard I work and how much of a struggle it has been to get to where I am today, because I just thought everyone was struggling as much as me and just doing a better job of hiding it. So, those dismissive responses of everyone's a little autistic, first of all, it's just not true. Second of all, it's not helpful. Number five, the fifth thing we can do is ask if they want to share more. Something like a simple check in. Is there anything else you'd like me to know about how autism shows up for you? That to me is probably the most meaningful step that someone can take. That curiosity of, okay, well, what does this look like in your life? Like, I have an idea in my life of like what I think autism is, but what does it mean for you? And let them guide the depth of the conversation. So if they start pulling you in and sharing more stories, you can kind of reciprocate, ask more questions. If they don't seem like they're ready to quite delve into that yet, be respectful of that as well. The sixth thing here is to respect privacy. This is not your information to share. And I have heard many stories from people in our community. Once family members or friends have this information that they share, when they say, hey, I'm autistic, sometimes friends and family will take that information and they will spread it in their circles. And this is extremely, extremely hurtful. It's not your information to share, and do not share it without permission. And then the last thing on my list here is show a willingness to learn. Say, I'd love to learn more, or are there any resources that you would recommend? And I would really go off of what they suggest, because every person's experience is different. I share this with people in my community. Some of the first books that I read about autism were Dr. Temple Grandin's books. They're fantastic books, but her experience of autism looks so different than mine. So if you just start reading autism content, it may or may not line up with this person's experience who has shared this with you. So ask them what's been speaking to them, if there's channels. Hopefully I'm on the list. I would love that. And I also have free resources for you watching. I have an ultimate guide to understanding autism, which is 40 terms that I wish I would have known when I was autistic. This will help you communicate and have deeper conversations with the autistic people in your life. I'll put a link to that in the description, totally free to download. And then, signal that you're open to continue learning about this, that you're open to continuing to check in about this. Even asking the question, like, how can I show up for you in the future? What would be helpful? Do you want me to check in with you specifically about, maybe autistic struggles that you're having? Or do you just want to be able to check in with me knowing that I understand this about you and it's something that we could talk about and touch base on in the future? And then before we wrap up today, I wanted to share some actual responses from our community. I asked my community on YouTube and Instagram, how do you wish people would respond if and when you share your autism diagnosis? So here are some responses we got. How interesting. Tell me more. Another person said, I would like them to be curious and to take me seriously when I ask them to meet me halfway in communication styles. Otherwise, it's still me doing all the work to bridge the gap in understanding, which makes me sad that I even bothered to share in the first place. The next person says, acceptance, understanding, and hopefully wanting to learn and help me when I need help or meeting me halfway. This one says, I'd like them to be kind, curious, and open-minded. This one says, when I told my brother that my psychologist and I thought I was autistic, he said, that makes sense, and it was so validating. This one says, the best reaction would be to have them look at me, not just brush it off and say, thank you for sharing something so personal. It must be hard showing me your vulnerability. The thing that I hope you'll come away with is that you don't need to have a perfect response, just a respectful one. And particularly when you can stay curious and ask thoughtful questions instead of assuming that you understand what something means, that is extremely helpful. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video to educate and inform yourself about what it means to be autistic through the lens of an actually autistic person. Don't just take my word for it. Keep learning, keep listening to other people's stories. There are so many different experiences, all worth hearing. Join me for part 3. We're going to be talking about what it actually means to be autistic, what that looks like in real life. And I'm going to be sharing stories again from people in our own community. I will put the link to that free ultimate guide to understanding autism in the description. Please like this video if it was helpful to you. Subscribe to the channel so you can be here for part 3. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.